With just 2 fingers from each hand, the healing process can begin. Author Debra Schildhouse introduces readers to the powerful healing method called BioTouch. Joining me today is author Debra Schildhouse to discuss her book, BioTouch, Healing with the Power of Our Fingertips. Also joining Debra is Paul Bucky, co-founder and executive director of the International Foundation of Biomagnetics, dedicated to the teaching and ministering of BioTouch. Okay, are we ready to start?
Yeah.
Okay. First off, let's start with you, Paul. In the simplest of terms, what is BioTouch, and how does it differ from other hands-on healing methods?
In the simplest of terms, let's see. Well, BioTouch is just touch. And it's light touch, using the index middle finger of each hand to lightly touch a series of points on the body. How it's different from other techniques is there's no level of healers. Everyone's effective the very first time they do it. And it's really, we don't diagnose or recommend. We're just trying to get it into the whole family structure.
Thank you. Debra, why did the 1980 movie Resurrection, starring Ellen Bernstein, have such an impact on you?
Well, when I watched that movie, I was mesmerized by this amazing woman with this hands-on healing, helping all these people. And I said to myself, I want to do that. And so the next day I ran out and I found a couple of healing books. It wasn't easy in 1980. There weren't very many around. And I took these 2 books home and I started to study what it said. But it was really difficult because it said you had to concentrate really hard. You had to bring heat into your hands. You had to see colors coming out of your fingers. And then you could heal people. Well, that was a lot of work, and usually it didn't work for me. Occasionally I was able to bring some warmth into my hands and touch somebody, a friend or a relative, and actually help something that they had, a gas pain or a toothache. But usually it did not work. And it did not work when I needed it the most, and that was to help my daughter, who was suffering with viral meningitis 6 years ago. And the doctors, they couldn't help her. She was in terrible pain, and my hands remained cold. And luckily she recovered and she was fine, but I knew I really needed to find a healing technique that I could depend on. And then, thank goodness, I found BioTouch.
Debra, why did you write the book, and what was your approach to writing this book?
Well, I wrote this book because BioTouch is hope, and I was seeing so many amazing things when I went and I took the class and I learned actually how to be a practitioner of it. I was so impressed with it because unlike the other method I tried that was so difficult, this was so easy. You didn't have to concentrate. You didn't have to think certain things or have certain beliefs. And you could be thinking about what you were going to be making for dinner, and you could be touching somebody and helping them and help them feel better. So I was so impressed with that. And then I started to work to volunteer at the BioTouch Center here in Tucson. And there were so many amazing stories that, you know, I was watching before my eyes that, you know, more people needed to hear about this. You know, this is something, it was like, it's a hidden, you know, the best kept secret needs to be out there, or a much wider audience. And so when Paul said to me one day, you know, someone needs to write the book about BioTouch, I said, wow, I can do this. I have all these amazing stories. I have these incredible experiences that I've been through. And so I, you know, kind of wove in my experiences as a practitioner, along with Paul's background, because he had such a fascinating background. I interviewed him. I got, you know, Paul's the one who discovered BioTouch back in the 80s. He had he was a spiritual seeker since he was 5 years old. So I wove stories about his life, about my life, and about the experiences that I've had with BioTouch. And it's a lot of very interesting, heartwarming, sometimes funny, and incredible stories.
Paul, why is the book so important to BioTouch?
Well, it's time for people like the story of how I came upon the technique, gives people the why we do BioTouch, and it helps all people understand that it's an easy technique to do, and then they can learn how to do it. So it sort of gives people a nice beginning in order for them to then want to learn the how to do it. So it was just, we've been doing BioTouch in public for 25 years, and this just seemed to be the perfect time to tell my story in relation to Debra's story.
Debra, you mentioned several times in the book that your hands get warm or hot while doing BioTouch treatments. Why is that?
Well, it's ironic because I don't even try to bring warmth into my hands when I'm doing BioTouch. It just automatically happens for me. It doesn't happen for everybody. Not all practitioners of BioTouch get this, but for some reason I get not just warm, I get very, very hot, and it starts with my hands, and it goes up my arms, and it goes, I'm just a sweaty mess, half the time when I'm doing this. And like I said, the irony is when I tried so hard to bring that heat into my hands, doing it the other techniques, I couldn't do anything. So I don't know, it just happens to me.
What is a testimonial book?
Which one of us would you like to answer?
Oh, I'm sorry, Debra.
The testimonial book is a thick 3-ring binder that sits in the BioTouch Center here in Tucson, and what it is, it's filled with testimonials of people that have over the years been so, lack of a better word, touched by their experience with BioTouch that they had to sit down and write out how it helped them, and they wanted to do that and share with other people the miracle that BioTouch, was to them.
And it's also now online, also on our website, justtouch.com. There's the whole section where those are being put onto the website also now, too. So people don't have to come to Tucson to read the testimonial book any longer.
Okay, this is for both Debra and Paul. Can you tell us a little bit about Curtis' testimonial, and how did BioTouch help him?
Well, Curtis was a 74-year-old man who suffered with a condition that caused the men in his family to go blind. And he had been blind for at least 5 or 6 years when he heard about BioTouch, and he started to come and have sessions. And I know it sounds incredible, but BioTouch helped him to see.
And I was actually working with him when he had those moments, driving down the street and seeing a perfect moment of all the trees on the mountains. A friend was driving it. And when he came into the center, it was such an emotional connection between him and all the practitioners. We sort of all got a chance to participate in his healing. And he was totally amazed. It just changed his life.
Paul, what were your initial impressions of the BioTouch healing technique?
My initial impressions when I first met Norman, this mining engineer in Colorado, was this is just too simple. And because he just, it was in a little house in this little town in Mancos, Colorado, and he just simply took me into the bedroom and had me, he touched me on the skin and a few points on the back, and when we were done, went out into the kitchen area, and when I first met them, the house was filled with smoke. He was a smoking guy. He and his wife were smokers. They were coffee drinkers, and I was really impressed by that kind of presentation. There was no pretense of healing, so it was just a very simple kind of presentation. And when I asked him, okay, what should I expect happen, he said, I don't know. Whatever happens is fine. And I said, well, should I come back? And he says, if you want. And when I asked him how much it was, and he said, oh, no, they didn't charge. The light bulb went on up in my head. I was just too amazed that here was a man offering healing work to the whole community, and he and his wife weren't charging at all.
Paul, how did your mom's surgery help shape your views on BioTouch?
Well, my mother they had to do an open heart surgery for her, and they killed her on the operating table. She died on the operating table. When they finally brought her back to life, they said she'd be a vegetable if she even lived. So I got to the hospital from Hawaii. She was in Denver, and started working on her immediately with BioTouch. And what chance to see was a lot of other families hanging around in the waiting room for their loved ones who were also in ICU. And I realized that I had something I could do, that I could help my mother with she was in a coma at that time. And I realized that most of these people were hopeless, and they were in a lot of fear. And I just recognized the importance of getting this to the family structure so that at least we had something that we could do as caregivers and for our loved ones who were either in a coma or in an ICU or just had a simple cold and a flu or a heart problem. So my goal was really to get it to the family structure because I kept working on my mother, and she just basically 6 months later was able to walk on a beach in Hawaii when they said she'd never walk or talk again.
That's great. Debra, what is the wow factor?
Actually, that's a better question for Paul.
Okay, Paul, what is the wow factor?
Right. The wow factor is basically every time someone gets work, people always ask us, does this work all the time? And it might not get rid of a heart problem right away, but the one thing we do know that happens is every time someone gets the greeting and maybe a couple of sets of points, and this could be maybe a 5-minute session, people always go, wow, at the end of it. And I learned a long time ago from a neurobiologist or a neuroscientist that when we have a wow factor, when we have something in our life where we go, wow, that actually what's happening is things are changing in the deepest seat of our consciousness, and then it percolates to the body getting better too, and it's sort of that mind-body connection that we hear about in healing work. And BioTouch appears to always have that wow factor when people have it done to them.
Okay, this is for both of you. Why is BioTouch so important?
Well, again, I think it's what Paul said before. It's the fact that you don't have to be so hopeless or helpless when someone you love is going through a medical crisis. There's something you can do. You can have some manner of control by being able to touch them and help bring down their stress levels, help them to breathe deeper, help them to relax and, take away some of the pain. And you don't have to go to any, gurus or healers. You've got it right in your own fingertips. Everybody does. Everybody can help each other, and that is the hope and that is the promise of BioTouch.
And the fact is it's basically a continuing love story for humanity. It's giving us the opportunity to regain our birthright, which is to be healthy, happy, and loved. And BioTouch gives that opportunity to people.
Paul, what does it mean when you say BioTouch is love?
Well, that's what it's about. Reaching out to one another. It's about being in relationship with people. We do touch right on the skin, and we touch at the solar plexus. And we're not trying to change people. We're just trying to be present with people. We're trying to be in relationship. And it really is, when I first learned the technique, this little old farmer from Mancos, Colorado says to me, Norman and Carol brought love to the Mancos Valley. And that's when I decided I really needed to get BioTouch out there because it just helped people with just that simple application of that golden rule to love thy neighbor.
And this question is for both of you. How has BioTouch made a difference in your life, and have you used the technique on family members?
Well, it's pretty ironic, but right now I am using it every day on my mother. My mother's 95, and she's in hospice. We think she's in her last, days or weeks. And I have been working on her every single day, and I have been helping her to relax. And it's either going to help her rally or it's going to help her release. I mean, that's what BioTouch, does. And I can tell that, she is, breathing deeper afterwards. She's more relaxed. She also suffers with short-term memory loss, but she always remembers BioTouch. She remembers the name of it. She remembers how it's done, and she'll put up, the 2 fingers of both hands, and she'll say, oh, yes, BioTouch. Somehow that has stayed in her memory because it has affected her. And so that has changed my life because it again gives me, a manner of control. I can do something to help people that I love, or somebody on the street if I saw that they needed something. I mean, it's just, you don't have to feel helpless.
And for me, before I met Norman and Carol and started doing BioTouch, I was sort of living an isolationist kind of life. I was a hippie living out on the land outside of society. And when I learned BioTouch, I realized my personal belief systems weren't as important as giving a tool of empowerment to people, an expression of love thy neighbor to people. And so it's, in a sense, pushed me to live a very public life and talk about this technique as we try to get it to every hut on the planet.
Debra, where can readers find your book?
It is on Amazon. It's on IndieBound. It's on Goodreads. What else is there, Paul? Well, certainly on my website, www.debraschildhouse.com, and certainly on the BioTouch website, www.justtouch.com.
Debra, do you have any plans for the future you could tell our listeners about?
Well, I'm already thinking about how I'm going to write my second book about BioTouch.
Paul, where can our listeners go for more information on BioTouch?
Everything someone needs is right on our website, justtouch.com. Also our Facebook, we have BioTouch Healing, where we post a lot of testimonials. But on our website, you can actually start to learn the technique. We have a list of conditions that you can look up. You can download for free the first 10 pages, which gives you the beginning steps of BioTouch. We do have a e-book training manual that people can download. We have information. There's also a way to contact us with any personal questions. All right on the website, so it's very easy to learn anywhere in the world.
It's also very inexpensive. I mean, you can actually download the entire technique for $18. I know, it's unheard of.
Yeah, really, at that price. Okay. Is there anything you guys would like to add?
I just really appreciate you taking the time to want to share this technique, this simple touch healing technique with humanity. I think it's just something that every family should have right along with their toothbrush. It's just that simple to do and can be done just as simply as brushing our teeth, and we hope people will take advantage of it.
I'd like to thank you both for taking the time to discuss BioTouch and the book BioTouch, Healing with the Power in Our Fingertips with our listeners today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
Thank